One of the aspects that is a little bit maybe unnerving at the beginning of your table is this whole branding thing. Your table looks drastically different all of a sudden because you made it a table. It doesn't have to be that way. So to format your table, there's a bunch of different pieces that we can do up in the Table Tools Design tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up here in the Contextual tab, that Table Tools Design, and we're going to talk about the table style options and the table styles themselves. So to start with, if you go to the table styles, you can choose a different style. It likes to start with this like bluish thing. Sure, but you don't have to do that. You could go to kind of a lighter gray. There's even one in the top left called None, where your table goes back to looking the way that it did before. So you can choose something here that you like. Now the problem here to some extent is that if you have manual formatting applied in any way, you won't necessarily get it to overwrite. So if you're thinking ahead to making something into a table, don't do any formatting to it. Leave it completely boring, except for maybe number formats, and then make it into a table and you'll get more flexibility with the formatting and the style. As you can see, if I come down here and try to do one of these medium ones, my headers are suddenly all black. And that's because the font must have been manually changed to black, not just style-wise to black. So if I came down here and chose one of these, I'd have to also then redo my headers and make their font color back to white or automatic, something like that. Make them back to something where I can see them. Now, in my Table Tools Design, there's a bunch of different formatting types. You can even create your own style if you want to, although it tends to be maybe a little bit more than you might need. But you can choose any one of these styles and decide you want to. Again, notice the red and the green, or the orange and the green, those are going to be stock because of the fact that they were applied beforehand. So they're not going to change because whoever created this table built them in that way. So we choose a style from the right-hand side, one that's going to make it look the way we want to. Now, as we're choosing the style, we can also be considerate of the style options here. In the style options, we get to choose what sorts of aspects in the style we want to focus on and bring out. Probably the most important one right down here is the banded rows option. Do I want to see banded rows? Do I want to see banded columns? If I don't want to see banded rows, I can simply turn it off. It's a concept, not an absolute. So 2, 4, 6, and 8 are not absolutely formatted a certain way. It's almost like there's a gel or a layer on top that just kind of colors it as you look at it. If instead I'd want to have banded columns, I could do that instead. If my first or last column were specifically important, I can highlight them. It'll either make them bold or it could make them an entirely different color. You'll see as I do this, some of my styles then become very different. So I could choose to make the last column or the first column really important. You'll notice you can turn off filter buttons if you don't want them on. So if you just want the filter buttons off for a while, you can turn them off to print. If you don't want the header row on, you can turn it off, although that one usually stays on as well. Then there's this thing called the total row. The total row is one of the coolest aspects of your table because it's just there for you. You don't have to do anything about it and it will be built. So when you turn it on, when you check the total row, what happens is at the very bottom of your table, wherever it is, 700 rows, 7,000 rows, doesn't matter, wherever the bottom of your table is, there will now be a total row. In the total row, every single cell, you have the ability to summarize it, that column. Okay, I want to average the wait time. I want to average the call length. Maybe I want to count how many total entries there are. Not necessarily how many unique product codes, but just how many there are. I could average the customer satisfaction overall. And you can see right here, it already likes to sum the amount for the farthest right bottom column. It usually assumes that's like a total sales number, something like that. And you can kind of do this as you want. Now the cool thing about this total row is what they actually are doing. Notice this. It says equals subtotal 109, comma, original sale. Now, original sale amount, which is the whole column name, that is the column that it's subtotaling. 109 is a number that refers to the sum function. You don't have to know any of this. It's just something that's there. What subtotal does that's different than just a sum is that when we now filter, if I want to look at specifically just the annex, you'll see that there are 100 total calls. So you can see the average call length, you can see the average customer, and the total sales amount for the annex that called in there. Instead of the annex, I just want to see the annex west. I can see the 98 there. I can see the slightly higher customer satisfaction and the original sales amount. So as you filter your table, the total row is really actually a subtotal row. So you see the subtotals there for the information that you have filtered down to. So you can choose to use a table and use this filter row as the ability to put that in. Now, if you turn off the total row, it goes away. If you turn it back on, it just comes right back the way it was set. If you ever wanted to add something to the bottom of your table, you turn off the total row, you start typing in the new value, and then if you turn on the total row, you'll see how it's pushed itself down further. It's gone down an extra row. So you can add extra rows to your table and then just turn back on the total row, and there it is. And as we talked about before, the total row will not be part of your pivot table. It won't do any of those sorts of things. So it's a total row, it's a subtotal row. It is basically all this cool stuff built in to the table style options. So we choose a style for our table, we choose which of these features we want, and we're good to go.
We hope this video helped. Make sure to click the thumbs up and click the subscribe button right here. And click the link above to check out our Limelight classes, a free virtual live training. See you in the next video.